without you.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm back with another 3 looks video, and today we are doing one of the 3 looks videos where I do 2 versions of each look. So today is going to be 3 looks using the new Lime Crime Venus XL2 palette. I'm going to be doing a very simple wearable version of each look and then a version of it with some slight embellishment. So not like a full face paint today or a lip art, but I'm going to be adding some sort of a less traditional element like some sequins or perhaps some pearls or some jewels. I haven't really fully fleshed out and decided what I'm going to add to each look yet. I'm kind of going to play it by ear as we go along, see what the palette sort of inspires in me. I know I'm a little bit late to the game as far as doing looks with the Venus XL2 palette, and the reason for that is I wasn't sure if Lime Crime was going to send this to me or not, because sometimes they send me things and sometimes they don't, and I haven't received anything from that yet, so I took matters into my own hands and I ordered it from Ulta. But unfortunately, that means that I don't have the new glosses, so if you were looking for swatches of the new glosses, I cannot help you out with that today. But if I do wind up getting them in the near future, I will put together a swatch video for Instagram, so that way you guys can get a look at what those look like as well. But in general, I absolutely love the wet cherry glosses. They're actually some of my favorite glosses, and I find them to be almost comparable. Now hear me out. Not completely comparable, but closely comparable to the Fenty Gloss Bombs. The formula in general is delightful. This palette has a lot of greens in it, which you guys may know if you've been watching me for a while. I usually struggle with greens, but I think these type of shades of green, because they're a little bit more on the pastel side, because they have like a little bit more of like a sagey tone to them, I think they're a lot easier to wear and a lot easier to work with than deeper greens, olive greens, maybe metallic greens, like more foresty greens. Those are definitely a lot harder than these type of greens here. So if you've been like thinking about dipping your big toe in the world of green eyeshadows, this might be a good place for you to start. After I do all of these looks, I will do a little assessment on my thoughts of the quality of the shadows and how they perform at the end of this video. And as always, I'm going to timestamp everything, because I know these 3 looks videos, especially ones that I add like a little embellished version or some lip art or something like that, they take a long time. So if you guys only want to see one of the looks, or if you're only really interested in the review, or if you're not interested in the more creative parts, you could skip around a little bit and save yourself some time, because I know we are all very, very busy. I don't think there's a lot more to say before we get into it, but before we start, please don't forget to leave a like on this video if you don't mind taking a second, because it helps me out a lot and I super appreciate it. And also, if you are new here, don't forget to subscribe, because I would absolutely love to have you around for more videos, and I think just maybe you may enjoy it as well. Okay, that's that on that. Let's zoom in and get started on the first look. So before we start the first look, let's take a look at the palette itself. The packaging is really, really cool. It's kind of reminiscent of the Venus de Milo, except this Venus has green hair and a septum ring and is wearing acrylics, which I think we can all relate to. The inside of the palette has 18 shades, and it definitely seems a lot more shimmer heavy than it is matte heavy, but there are mattes mixed in as well. A few of these shades definitely look very duochromatic in person, and I'm going to reserve judgment until I try it on my eyes, because I have learned recently that a lot of these highly pigmented shadows tend to be a lot more deep and rich looking when they're on your skin than they are in the pan. But my initial reaction upon seeing it in person is that a lot of these shades fall a bit too much in the mid-tone range, in my opinion. Just off the bat, I would have liked to see a deeper matte and like a whitish matte or like a bone shade matte. I just find those very handy in a palette, but I'm not going to judge until we start creating looks. Also, I just wanted to make note that when this palette arrived in the mail this morning, this shade down here, which is called West, which is like a brown shimmer shade, this was broken in its pan. It wasn't completely shattered to the point where it was unsalvageable, but I had to carefully remove the plastic and then press it back into place. I completely understand sometimes things happen in shipping, so it may not be a reflection on the palette at all, but what that tells me is that most likely the shimmer shades are very softly pressed, which is fine by me, but it does mean that they're probably a little bit more delicate. That's not necessarily a negative thing. Some of my most favorite eyeshadows of all time are like notorious for shattering. So if I do decide to bring this somewhere with me, I am going to be very, very careful. I'm going to start this look by going into the shade In Bloom on a BH number 5 brush, and I'm going to pack that through my crease area. So far that's giving me a lot of pigment, and it's definitely a very, very soft formula, even for the matte shades. Just dipping into that shade very gently, I already have a little bit of kickback. That doesn't particularly bother me personally, but I do like to mention it when I notice that because I know some people absolutely hate that. I'm just gonna blend the edge of that out with a clean brush. I'm also gonna grab a pencil brush and a little bit of that same shade again. I'm gonna pack that on the outer portion of my lid. Next, I'm going to go into the shade Crown on another pencil brush. This is a clean pencil brush. This is a shimmer shade, so at first I'm going to apply it dry and see how we like it, and if I feel like we need to apply it wet, then we will. Initially though, I don't necessarily want it to be super intense here because this is only going to be like a small portion of the look. It's not going to be the main event. Next, I'm going to pick up my trusty MAC 268S brush and the shade Classical, which is a brown shade, but it has a little bit of a warmth to it, a little bit of red. And I'm going to go ahead and use that just almost as a soft liner across the lid, but not with a wing. So I'm just going to stamp that across my lash line and try to taper it so it's a little bit skinnier on the inner portion. This is kind of how I've been doing my day-to-day makeup lately. I've been sort of gravitating toward doing this or something similar to this with the Kat Von D Lolita palette, which I have been enjoying quite a bit. And you guys, every time I post my little makeup of the day on my Instagram story, always ask me about it. And this is how I do it. I just use different colors, but generally this technique is what I've been doing on the day-to-day, and I quite like it. I'm going to pick up that pencil brush again, and I am going to dip into the shade Classical, and I'm going to use that pencil brush to deepen up the outer corner and just use that to connect that color into like the outer corner of the eye so that that liner that we created with the shadow sort of blends in. Now that that general shape is down, I'm feeling like this is too boring. So I'm gonna go into the shade Obscure and try to add a little bit more color into this mix. I'm picking that up on a pencil brush and I'm gonna try it dry at first, but I think on this one we may need to go ahead and use it wet. I'm gonna start by packing that onto my inner corner and dragging that up toward the actual lid. I may need to stamp some more of that shade Classical over the inner portion after this because I wasn't really planning on doing this much color on the inner corner, but that's okay. Just didn't anticipate that I was going to be doing this step. So far, that shade is actually my favorite that we've used out of this palette so far. I know we haven't used that many, but that one really has a lot of punch to it and it looks really, really pretty on the lid. I'm not sure how much the shimmer picks up on camera, but in person it looks very like almost like glowingly light green. And I actually quite like the way it looks dry, but I want it to be a little bit more punchy on the inner corner, so I am going to go back in a second time and I'm going to wet my brush this time. For the lower lash line, I want the color scheme in the waterline to reflect the colors that are on the lid because I think it's the combination of the colors that's kind of making this a cooler look. So I'm gonna go through the inner portion of my waterline with the Urban Decay pencil in Freak. And on the outer part of the waterline, I'm going to use 1999. And on a MAC 266S brush, it's a little angled brush, but it has a little bit of fluff to it. I'm gonna go back into the shade Classical again. I'm gonna press that into the outer portion of the lower lash line, but keeping it closer to the lashes this time, and then just connecting it up around into the darker portion that we put closer to the lash line on the top. And I'm gonna go back into the shade Obscure on the same little pencil brush. And this time I'm going to just straight up wet it because I'm keeping it a little bit more concentrated. So I wanna get the punch of that color without the more like blended out outer edges of it. I finished the eyes with the House of Lashes Stella Luxe Lash. For the lip, I don't want to do anything super over the top because I feel like I want to let the color combination and the really pretty finish on this green speak for itself. So I'm gonna line my lips with a nude pencil. This is the NABLA lip pencil in the color Touch Me. And I'm going to top them with the Urban Decay Hi-Fi Shine Gloss in the color Aphrodisiac, which has this kind of green to a mauve shift in it. It's like a similar theme to the look we've got going on in the eyes, but the Hi-Fi Shine glosses, although they look like really wild in the tube, are actually really, really subtle on the lip, which I think is perfect here because it'll still give us like a nudish lip appearance with just like a little hint of an, oh yeah, that goes together. And this is the simpler version of the first look. So for the slightly embellished version of this look, I'm going to use these gold dot pieces of glitter that I have. These are a type of glitter that's usually referred to as confetti glitter. Basically, it's just very uniform and flat, and these specifically are perfectly round rather than having like a shapely edge. So we're going to concentrate it on the outer portion. I'm going to start by placing down some clear lash glue. I'm going to use my House of Lashes clear glue. I'm going to start by mapping out a shape, placing down a few of the dots, and then working from there and seeing what shape makes the most sense. But in general, I want the shape to be kind of like a blown out wing shape coming out toward the temple. And this is the slightly fancier, more embellished version of the first look. Okay, so for look number 2, I already sat down once and started this look, and I had kind of a winged out soft sort of a color block thing going on. I didn't save all the footage of me creating the look because it takes up way too much space on my camera. So I just took a little clip on my cell phone, which is also helpful because it shows what it looks like in natural light because I walked into the other room, which I did initially to make sure that I wasn't just seeing things in the harsh lighting in here. I felt like no matter what I did, the green, the color sage that I was using was very difficult. First, I was very, very impressed with the pigmentation and how easily it was blending, but it seems to be one of those shades that blends too much. So eventually, if you try to like reblend an area or blend it into another color, it becomes very patchy and you lose a lot of the pigmentation and it just like kind of blends too far and becomes muddy. So I'm going to start this look again. I just took everything off. I reprimed my eyes. Part of me wants to revisit that look and do it all over again, but to be honest with you, I just don't have it in me right now. So I'm going to go for something completely different. So I'm going to start by going into the shade In Bloom. And I'm taking it on a LUXE 121 mini brush, and I'm going to start by packing that into the crease area on the inner corner. And I'm gonna use completely different colors than this, but I wanted to try a shape that I saw Priscilla Ono post on Instagram. I will insert the photo here so you can see what I'm talking about. She did it with blues, but I just liked the way that she used the shadows and the wing. It was just a little bit different, and I think we're gonna try something like that today. I'm going to take a little bit of the shade Classical, and I'm picking it up on a pencil brush, and I'm just going to use it to deepen the outer corners a little bit. For the center of the lid, I'm going to go into the shade Eve, and I learned while I was doing the last look that this shade works best on your finger, so I'm just going to use that on my finger and dab it into the center where I left it open. Now that that shape is down, I want to do a nice thick black liner on the top. So I'm going to use my Benefit roller liner. And I'm going to take that liner and I'm going to wrap it around the inner tear duct and bring it a little bit underneath as well. So on the look that Priscilla did, she left the bottom lash line like really, really bare, and I really like the way that looks, but I have so much eyeshadow and liner left in my lower lash line from doing the last look that I'm gonna go with it, because otherwise I'm gonna spend my afternoon scrubbing liner out of my waterline. So I'm taking a little bit of that color Sage that I was complaining about earlier, and I'm going to just use it along the lower lash line, just a touch. And to make this look a tiny bit more interesting, I'm gonna grab the Lime Crime Diamond Dew eyeshadow. This is like a liquid shadow in the color Rose Goals, and I'm going to find my last clean brush on earth. I'm gonna pick a little bit of this up on the brush, and I'm going to dab that in the center of where we put down that shimmery shade. I feel like this will just kind of add, first of all, a little bit more something interesting to this version of the look. And also it'll kind of brighten up that center portion of the lid. For the lip, I'm thinking I'm going to line with Kat Von D Lolita and top it with this Too Faced gloss in the color All the Stars. And this is the simplified version of this second look. For the embellished version of this look, I am going to use these little rhinestones that I have. I think I've used them in a look before, but they are like kind of like a smoky sort of a shade. And as usual, I'm using my trusty House of Lashes clear glue for this and my pair of tweezers, and I'm just gonna have at it. Honestly, even this version of this look is like super wearable, and I am going to get some Mexican food with some friends in a little bit, and I think I might just leave it on this way because why not? Okay, for look number 3, I'm gonna go with a little classic kind of halo spotlight thing, and I'm going to do a little twist on it that we've done on this channel before. I'm gonna start by going back into Sage. I am giving it another chance. I don't like to dismiss a shadow and say that it sucks after only giving it one shot at performing well, because sometimes certain shadows perform differently under different circumstances. So for this look, we are just packing it through the crease. I'm going to pack it in pretty heavily to make sure that I get a good amount of coverage, because it is a very pigmented shadow. It's when the blending comes in that we ran into some trouble last time. Then I'm gonna take a small blending brush. This is the LUXE 121 Mini, and I'm gonna just blend the edge of that rather than attempting to blend any more than just the edge. I'm already getting a much, much better result this time. I'm gonna zoom you guys in so you can see. Next, I'm gonna go into the shade Classical, and I'm gonna pack that down on the outer and inner corner. And to blend that just a little bit, so now we're not dealing with a harsh line, I'm gonna take a Sigma EO6. This brush is clean, and I'm just gently blending that brown into the green. And I've mentioned this before, but if you're new here, maybe you haven't seen me say this. Something I've noticed, I have very creasy eyelids. So sometimes if I tilt my head back, you can see, you'll notice that even when I pack down a shadow, it gets like little crease lines in it. And sometimes that's okay because I'm going over with something else anyway. But if I want to get rid of them, a good way to do it is tip my head back because it flattens out my lid, and then pack a little more color down with my head tilted back. So if you just tap over what you already did, it should fill in most of like little creasy lines that just were created by the fact that you have creases on your lid. Okay, so now that I have those shades down and they are reasonably blended and where I need them to be, we're going to start creating that spotlight in the center. And as I usually like to do, I'm picking up the Kat Von D Super Brow in the shade Whiteout. This is like my favorite thing for cutting a crease or creating a spotlight, and I'm doing that on my NABLA Cosmetics cut crease brush, which I love. This is my favorite brush for doing cut creases, and they nailed it. I'm gonna start by just dabbing it in the general shape of where I want that white spotlight to be, and then I'll dab it down onto the lid as I go. I'm just gonna take my finger and dab over the very edge of that, just so it's not a harsh line. We're going to pretty much blend over all the edges anyway, but an easier way to do that is to do it after we've tapped out the edge of the white so that it's not super harsh. So now that we have that white shape down, obviously we're gonna make a nice bright center here. But to blend the edges of that from the white into the brown, I want something that's like kind of in the middle. So I'm gonna go into the shade Locust on a pencil brush. I'm just gonna softly dab that over the edges. But I'm not gonna put that on the very top part where we cut it because I do want to leave that very bright. Next, on that same brush, I'm going to go into the shade Ivy. This is a light green that has a little bit of a pink shift to it. And I'm going to use that to dab over the remaining amount of white that we have there on the lid. Now, something you may have noticed here is that I chose to do this look without concealing my under eyes first. And the reason for that is I find that the shimmers in this palette, because they're very soft, have quite a bit of fallout, which you may be noticing right here. So we just planned accordingly. I'm gonna take a smaller brush and use that to pack over the edge where we put the white. And on the very center, I'm going to go back into the shade Obscure, which we used in the first look, and I'm going to pack that on a flat brush and I'm going to wet it. I'm gonna put that right in the center. It's not gonna make a huge difference, but I like the glowiness of this green, so I think that'll add a little bit something delightful. I concealed under my eyes and added powder so that we can move on to the lower lash line. I'm gonna go back into the color Sage again on a Real Techniques Essential Crease Brush, and I'm gonna use that to pack that color softly under my lower lash line, but I'm gonna leave the center empty. Next, I'm going back into the shade Classical on that pencil brush I used earlier. This is an e.l.f. pencil brush, by the way, which I really like. And I'm going to pack that onto the lower lash line and connect it around the end of the eye into the brown at the top. For the waterline, I want to keep reflecting that same shape. So for the outer portions, I'm going to use the shade Corrupt by Urban Decay. As you can see, this pencil is well loved, but I'm going to use that in the outer portions to darken that up and like be one with those browns. This is my favorite brown liner of all time for the waterline. But again, I think the size of my pencil speaks for itself. That's what she said, or he said. And for the center, I'm going to take a little bit more of that shade Whiteout from Kat Von D, the brow pomade, on that little tiny shader brush that we were using. And I'm going to just pop that on the center of my waterline and dab the edges of that in with my finger. I don't know if you guys are able to manhandle your waterline like I do. I mean, I spend many hours a week poking myself in the eyes with things, so that's probably why I can do that. But if you can't, just dab it with the brush if that's easier. I'm going to do something I've done in the past, and that is paint my bottom lashes in the center with some white eyeliner. I feel like that really brings that spotlight effect to life on the top and bottom and opens up the whole center portion of the eye. I cannot take credit for this technique. It's been done many times, but the first person I think I ever saw do it was probably Kelsiana Fitzpatrick. I think it was her. So I'm just taking the white liner and I'm just gonna paint it directly over those bottom lashes as if it were just mascara. I did something similar to this with a different type of eye look in my Kat Von D fetish palette video. If you have not seen that video and you would like to, I will link it on the screen. I'm gonna go ahead and add some regular mascara and lashes, and then we will move on. Oh my God, hold that thought. I almost forgot something important. I want to add some bright shimmer, probably in the green family, to the area underneath the lashes. I should have done this before I put the white on the lashes, but I lost track of what I was doing, and so here we are. I'm going to go into the shade Myth on a BH number 9 brush, which is flat, and it looks dirty, but it's not. It's just stained with lots of other things. I'm packing some of that color on the brush and just wetting it with a little bit of setting spray, and because I already have this white on my lashes, I'm going to tuck that underneath my lashes and dab it on cautiously. I really like the finish of this actually. I kind of wish I used more of this color on the lid now that I'm seeing it, how it applies. But I mean, that just gives us more opportunities to use it in another look in the future. Now that that's taken care of, now it's time for lashes. Okay, went with House of Lashes Stella Luxe Lash again, mostly because they were here. And now we need to add a lip to this situation. So I'm gonna use the Kat Von D Lolita lip pencil. And to jazz it up a little bit in the center, I'm gonna use the Fenty Eye and Lip Crayon in the shade Pretty Penny. And this is the simpler version of the third look. So if you have been here for a while on my channel, you might be familiar with my little tray of flat back pearls and jewels that I just have laying out here. At this point, I've used most of the jewels and there's just a lot of pearls. And if you're hearing clicking noises, that's Buster. And he's just tootling around the room. Buster, say hello. Hi. So to do that, we're gonna follow the same exact protocol we did for the last bunch of looks, but this time we're just going to be doing it in a different shape. So I'm going to use the House of Lashes clear glue, and I will carefully place each one on top of the area that we put the glue down, little by little, piece by piece, until we get the effect we want. And this is the slightly embellished version of the third look. This one isn't necessarily as wearable as the other two, but I think it's at a level of wearability where you could like find maybe like a festival or something, and festival season is coming, so I think it's quite appropriate. Okay, so I've done 3 looks with this palette and I feel like I have a pretty good handle now on what I think of it. Right now, as it stands, I kind of have mixed emotions about this palette. There are a few shades in here that I think are absolutely outstandingly pretty and very, very unique. Specifically, I love the shade Obscure. I feel like it has a very like glowingly green effect, and I know I've said that a couple of times in this video already, but I really mean it. It's like a really, really interesting, unique type of green that in person at least translates to a very different look that I don't have anything comparable to. So I really like that. I also feel like some of the other shades in here, like Ivy, which is the green with the pink shift, as well as Myth and Eve, which are like kind of like almost like a pressed glitter, both of them. They're very, very like just chunky glitteriness. They're all super duper interesting and very pretty, and not something that I have. I'm not sure if I have anything like maybe a little similar to them in some palettes somewhere, but I definitely don't have anything exactly like them. And off the top of my head, I can't even think of something comparable, honestly. And as far as the mattes are concerned, the mattes are so soft, which means that they give us a lot of pigment, but it is very easy to overblend them. The one that I found the easiest to work with was Bloom. That one was pretty much on par with every nicely pigmented shadow I've ever used. It was definitely very easy to blend, very easy to work with. Classical was pretty good too. It was really, really handy in these looks to keep deepening up the shades like we needed to. I even used it as a liner. You could definitely overblend it by accident, but it's not like super easy to overblend. Sage, on the other hand, the one that we had a little bit of trouble with, this one definitely is very easy to overblend. It's very, very easy to blend it away or make it muddy. Leaving that aside, I think the shade itself is really, really interesting. Like I said about a couple of the other greens in here, I don't think I have anything that's like a dupe of that in my makeup collection, which is always something that I'm like, okay, that's really cool because I have a lot of eyeshadow. So if I don't have something that's really like that, then that means it's pretty unique in my opinion. Overall, I think I do like this palette. Like after I spoke all that out loud, the pros outweigh the cons, but I definitely think there are a couple of things about it that I would change if I could. Overall, I'm not mad that I went out and bought this at all. I actually am really happy to have a few of these shades in my collection. For $59, I don't know, like the fact that it came with a broken shade and the fact that a couple of the shades gave me some trouble, it gives me pause on that price. Overall though, I did have a lot of fun playing with this palette and creating these 3 looks, and I definitely am going to keep it on my desk where I do my makeup daily and add a lot of these colors into my looks going forward for the next couple of weeks to play with them a little bit more. So definitely not a loss here. I'm happy I bought it with a couple of little caveats. Please let me know in the comments if you've picked up this palette. What do you think? Are you still planning on picking up this palette if you haven't yet? Please leave a like on this video if you don't mind taking a second, because that really helps me out in a big fat way and I would super appreciate it. And also, if you are new here, don't forget to subscribe because I personally would love to have you around for more videos. I think you may indeed enjoy it as well. Feel Feel free to come keep up with me between videos. I am at Miss Quinface on pretty much all social media, but the one that you might want to follow me on the most is Instagram, because that is where I post close-ups of all of my makeup. I post more creative lip art over there, and on my stories, I will keep you up to date on everything that's going on in this channel, so you will never miss a thing. That is all for today. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me while I created these looks with this new palette, and I will see you in the next one.